Okay, so today is April 2nd. Tomorrow is my father's birthday. So as you went up and you've seen the story of a street kid named Paco, my dad grew up in foster care and bounced back and forth between family members. And one day he came into his father's house, my grandfather, into his house. My grandfather thought it was a good idea to try to shoot him, not just once, but a couple of times. My dad left, and he met a man named Tachihari, which helped change and mold my dad into the man he is today. He joined the military, the Air Force, and in that time frame, when I was about 3, my mom and dad got a divorce. And in that time frame, during that time, my dad had always talked like a duck. And he created Dizzy Duck, along with, throughout the years, was a Teamster, first became a shop steward, and then vice president of the local 533. But in that time frame, my mom had left when I was 3, and I was adopted by my stepdad. And I met my dad when I was 15. I started talking to him on the phone, and then I went out to visit him, and he had a balloon delivery business that he called Dizzy Duck after because he wanted to have positive vibes and to do something positive. And Dizzy Duck was created. And when I met him, I had the opportunity to go to there's this park that's out over by Carson City, and I got to hand out balloons, and I got to see Dizzy do his magic for the first time with kids and adult kids, and the love that he gave out to people. And I remember coming back, and he still had on, because he has orange tights, and he had on orange tights, and he went to get gas, and I was 15 years old, or 16 at the time, 15, and then I turned 16 that summer that I came to see him. And he had on orange tights, and it was very embarrassing because he went in to get gas, and all he had was orange tights. He said, "What? It's funny." Everybody looking at him weird when he came out. And I remember when I came to live with him in Dizzy Duck, and him doing parties, visiting children's hospitals with Dizzy Duck, and being on the radio when I was a kid, getting ready for school, and he would be on the radio, and he transformed into Dizzy Duck, and he would be talking to so-and-so. It was a Reno morning talk show, and so that's how that came about. And point back out the ripple that I'm talking about of made with the fellow vet that with going through all that, and hitting head on and killing the passenger and driver of another car, is that kind of ripple that this is going to make. Coming over Donner's past, and using and everything, and being drunk and having the 2 ounces of methamphetamine. I died that night, and things happened after that to where we're at now. This thing has started a while back. I have videos of it, of starting with my board that I had of chalk talks. Whatever we throw up to the universe, we get back down. The law of attraction, and the universe, you can call the universe whatever you want. The universe exists. And so with that, and with creating this, it's created with love and good intent. And I just finished Jack and Jill that I wrote, and that will be on the site under CO, because I can't figure out how to put Jack and Jill in it. I didn't know what a domain was. I didn't know how do a website or whatever, and it will be changed eventually to just Healing Miles instead of how long it is now. But and other videos that of things that have happened with like going down to the Korean War Memorial and talking to my grandma, because my grandpa just turned 90 this year, and there's not a whole lot of Korean War vets. And I remember being a kid and him talking about it and asking him if he ever killed anybody, and tears in his eyes about his brothers dying and things like that. And with Nicole Bungalino, if you've heard the other ones with Talking with Freddy, Freddy's come out of the book Spirituality Through Imperfections. I took my fear out, and I named him Freddy, and he's over here. This is Freddy with the little mask on, and it says "Don't panic" on it. With the 42 states and the universe and everything in it, the answer is 42, and so it's 42 states. I'm in the process of other videos because I'm going to victim impact to victim impact. The first one is a kid named Nick Portis that wanted to be a Marine, and he was 17 years old. He snuck out of his house, the little shit, snuck out of his house, went out in the sticks, got drunk with his friends, and coming home, they flipped the vehicle. He hit his head on the rock and died. And that's the kind of ripple that I'm talking about. Without hopefully, and you will see the story of the first victim impact, and the first 200 miles that I go from here to Seattle will be in Nick Portis's memory. He was a 17-year-old that wanted to be a Marine, and you'll hopefully see the story of Nick on here, of a family member or whatever. The prison stories that are on here, the 42 stories of prison. Will be somebody that I'm working with, somebody with H&I now, that I'm going to go to the prison, and he's going to give his testimony and how he feels, what his life's like in prison, and for taking life, for drinking and driving, and that hopefully one day will lead back around to I'm going to go visit my fellow vet brother that's in prison, and for doing that, and his little girl and whatever. And with Nick Senior Bugalino, you know, because the universe is connecting things, and with Nick Senior and his son dying, and Nicole Bugalino Day that I had on the new moon, and the grandmother Ruth spot that I'm doing a special thing that won't be recorded or anything. And this coin, it's Veterans in Recovery that a fellow vet that's special to me gave to me. And this, when I get on the East Coast and I do from that victim impact to whatever other victim impact will be, this will be given to the Bugalino families, because we don't believe a brother behind, even in the other life. So this goes to their family, who's a fellow squid like me. In that said, with Dizzy being created and everything, and the next story that I'm writing, I hope you enjoy, Jack and Jill. The next story I'm writing is Dizzy being saved by a coming from the planet Orc, and he's saved by a little hairy boy named Robin Williams. And you know, most of us know who Robin Williams is, and sidekick Mindy, but a lot of kids don't. But stuff's being created and recording. To when I first started this thing with the intent of, if you've ever seen The Secret, it's a video, and it was a book too that I read a long time ago, and I was doing the 13 Virtues of Benjamin Franklin, and now I went on to forgiveness and things. Next videos and stuff that you'll be seeing, I won't be posting one for a while, but you will eventually see those. And like with my hat, it's there's a place down here in Portland, it's called Moda, and I started working the Blazers games, and I was working, I started the concave, and I was mopping and sweeping and going around, and then I did the boxes, and then up on the fifth floor, or fifth, the whatever you call it, the fifth thing up there. They have a kids part that's got video games, and there's all these things. And I worked up there that night, and like I became dizzy, and I was immersed in mopping, and the night went by so fast, and I was going around and I was mopping, and it was a beautiful time, acting like dizzy, and kids gravitate towards me anyway, and we had it set up before the corona thing, or whatever the corona, the games, and I was saying, if I had dizzy here, and would it be okay, because I would be doing my job, just sweeping and everything, is if I went ahead and I put I became dizzy while I was sweeping and doing that, I still get paid the same. And he said, well, you're not supposed to do that, but, and then left it open, and I have a fellow vet of mine, a jarhead named Goof, that was going to sneak in the costume, and I was going to do it anyway for that. But things happen for a reason, and they do, and things that are coming up with you see on the website, and eventually there'll be a link to it. It's the Dougie Center, and the Dougie Center, what that is they put out literature and stuff, and help families grieve during the process of losing a loved one, and especially for kids that have lost a parent due to like murder and being killed by a drunk driver and things like that. So yeah, so with that, and it being Thanksgiving, with it being Easter that's coming up, there's a whole little bunch of bunnies surrounding Fear and Fred here, and as we know, if you've seen the first video or the second video, whichever one it was, that I'm pulling out from Spirituality Through Imperfections, is Ronnie the Resenting Raccoon, or Resenting Ronnie here, and resentments, because we're all connected by our imperfections, and we all have fear, and we all have resentments, and pulling out Fear and Freddy not only helped me with my social anxiety and being around people without anything like that, and with PTSD, and he'd pop in like this, and Fear and Freddy would pop in like that, and I was getting ready to relive that again, and Fear and Freddy popped in, and as you know, PTSD can be a real thing, and Fear and Freddy popped in, and it didn't become as real anymore. Just like I'm talking to you, my fear is small, he's cute, his name's Fear and Freddy. And so Peanut was named after Nicole Bungalino, because I went through the thread, of the reason why I'm doing it is to, we all suffer, we're all gonna suffer. The Four Noble Truths that you see here with the dice is, we all suffer, and the best way to alleviate somebody else's suffering and our own suffering is to try to help somebody that is suffering. So that's where that came from, and the tiger's eye is special to me. Tiger's eye is for courage. When I was a kid, I was working at UPS, and I got an apartment, and I was living with this chick, and my dad had gave me from my grandfather that I'd never met a tiger's eye ring. He had his jewelry custom made and stuff, and it had a tiger's eye in it, and it's for courage, that my dad gave to me. And one day, walking home from the Nugget, me and my dad looked at each other, and I looked down at this jewelry, this pawn store, and there was the ring. It was right there, and that connection of with that ring, and that ring's gonna go to my son Jesse. When I go to because you see the 42 children's hospitals, one St. Jude's that's for the Bungalitos, when I get down there, and her daughter likes to fundraise for St. Jude's. You'll see Dizzy and tiger bracelet rings that I make that I'm gonna give to kids. And what's really cool about Portland, and I discovered, was I didn't discover it, they already had it here. But it's, the cute little guy, what's his name? The children's hospital. I can't think of the name right now, but the Shriners Hospital, their little spokesman. I like that little guy. But Dizzy's gonna be going there, talk to them, and with the Dougie Center, and I'm gonna get training of how to talk to kids that parents have passed over and to the other side. And I mean, upcoming things that you'll see is with the bungalinos and stuff that I planted out here, and with my friend Kim Merriman's daughter that was murdered and things. These are sunflowers, and I went ahead and planted them out in everybody's other veterans' windows that'll be growing or whatever. So yeah, with that being said, through the book Spirituality Through Imperfections, I just thought I'd read. One of the disconcerting and delightful teachings of the Master was, God is closer to sinners than he is saints. This is how he explained it. God in heaven holds each person by a string. When you sin, you cut the string. Then God ties it up again, making a knot, and thereby bringing you a little closer to him. Again and again your sins cut the string, and with each further knot, God keeps drawing you closer and closer. One day, Muhammad was offering morning prayer at the mosque. Among the people praying with the Prophet was an Arab aspirant. Reading the Quran, Muhammad recited the verse in which Pharaoh makes the claim, I am your true God. Oh, hearing this, aspirant was to fill with spontaneous anger that he broke the silence and shouted, the boastful son of a bitch. The Prophet said nothing, but after prayer was over, the others began to scold the Arab. Aren't you ashamed of yourself? You have surely displeased God, because not only did you interpret the holy silence of prayer, but you used filthy language in the presence of God's prophet. The poor Arab trembled with fear until Gabriel appeared to Muhammad and said, God sends greetings to you and wishes you get these people to stop scolding that simple Arab. Indeed, his spontaneous profanity moved my heart more than the holy prayers of the others. Although the wind is very powerful and you can feel its presence, in and of itself cannot be seen. You know it is there by an effect on others. The great trees, the grasses, the waves of the sea bend with each force. If you are aware of your surroundings, you know it is there long before you feel it. So it is with this inevitability. The daughter of Caesar said to Rabbi Yasa, whoever, in Yanin, why is glorious wisdom contained in an ugly vessel like you? He said to her, does your father keep his wine in earthen vessels? She said to him, and what else should he keep it? He said to her, you people of importance should keep it in gold and silver. She immediately went and told her father, who put the wine with golden and silver vessels. When it soured, Caesar confronted his daughter. Who told you to do this? She said to him, Rabbi Yosesho ben Hansen. Caesar called the rabbi to him and asked, why do you tell that to my daughter? What she told me, the rabbi replied, I told her. Caesar said, but there are also beautiful people who are scholars. If they were ugly, they would be even greater scholars. Socrates believed that the wise person would instinctively lead a frugal life, and he even went so far as to refuse to wear shoes. Yet he constantly fell under the spell of the marketplace and would go there often to look at the great variety and magnificence of the wares on display. A friend once asked him why he was so intrigued with the allures of the market. I love to go there, so Socrates replied, to discover how many things I am perfectly happy without. Beyond the ordinary, beyond material, beyond possession, beyond the confines of self, spirituality transcends the ordinary and yet is paradoxical. It can be found only in the ordinary. Spirituality is beyond us, and yet it is in everything we do. It's extraordinary, and yet it is extraordinarily simple. Simple, the word of importance, beyond the ordinary. It's not meant to suggest that something complicated, difficult, or self-consciously special. Nothing is simple. A Zen teacher saw 5 of his students returning from the market, riding their bicycles. When they arrived at the monastery and had dismounted, the teacher asked the students, "Why are you riding your bicycles?" The first student replied, "The bicycle is carrying the sack of potatoes. I am glad that I do not have to carry them on my back." The teacher praised the first student. "You are smart, boy. When you grow old, you will not walk hunched over like I do." The second student replied, "I love to watch the trees and the fields pass by as I roll down the path." The teacher commented the second student, "Your eyes are open and you see the world." The third student replied, "When I ride my bicycle, I am content to chant." The teacher gave his praise to the third student. "Your mind will roll with the ease of a newly trued wheel." The fourth student replied, "Riding my bicycle, I live in the harmony with all sentient beings." The teacher was pleased and said to the fourth student, "You are riding on the golden path of non-harming." The fifth student replied, "I ride my bicycle to ride my bicycle." The teacher sat at the feet of the fifth student and said, "I am your student." Spirituality is not spectacular, but spectacularly simple, and that is precisely why we find it so difficult to define and describe. The profound simple is simple inevitably, literally cannot be spoken. The Hebrew Bible portrays Moses and Jeremiah as protesting when called by God that they cannot speak, a claim that has been interpreted by some scholars as evidence that these prophets labored under the same kind of speech defect. The interpretation suggests 2 ideas. First, that God chooses to lead individuals to be divine spokespersons, and the second, that the choice seen was inevitably literal and unspeakable of true wisdom. The spirituality is simple and beyond words. A rabbi was asked to adjudicate a case. The first man presented his argument, and the rabbi, after hearing his evidence, said to him, "You are right." The second man presented his argument, and the rabbi, after hearing his evidence, said, "You are right." At this point, the rabbi's wife turned to her husband and asked, "How can both of these men be right?" The rabbi thought for a moment and then said, "Darling, you are right." I was told that at one time when she and Carl Joseph were preparing to marry, she was an ordinate teetotaler, and she could be fierce in her convictions. On the other hand, Carl Joseph, a true Rhinelander that he was, enjoyed his wine. That was why Ida one day raised with Carl Joseph the difficulties in their marriage, which the difference might cause. No difficulty, said Carl Joseph glumly. "We shall not have wine in our home." Then, after they had been married some 20 years, Ida woke up one morning and said to herself, "Ida, you are an awful prig. For 20 years you have deprived this good man of his wine." So immediately shared this revelation with Carl Joseph, who received the news with a smile and said, "Good. On my way home this evening I shall buy a bottle of wine and we shall celebrate." The time will come when the sight of wretchedness, which horrifies you now, will fill you with joy and keep you in a delightful peace. It is only when we reach the bottom of the abyss of our nothingness and are firmly established that we can walk before God in just and true. The fruit of grace must come from the moment remained hidden, buried, as were the abyss of your wretchedness underneath the most lively awareness of your weakness. Okay. Okay. You have learned how it was said, "You must love your neighbor and hate your enemy." But I say this to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. In this way you will be sons of your Father in heaven, for he causes his sun to rise on bad men as well as good, and his rain to fall on honest and dishonest men alike. For if you love those who love you, what right have you to claim any credit? Even the tax collector do as much as they do not. And if you save your greetings for your brothers and do nothing exceptional, even the pagans do as much, do they not? You must therefore, like your heavenly Father, as the very concept of a heavenly Father of any kind of a higher power implies, spirituality is found in the recognition and acceptance of one's creaturelessness infinite. There is, of course, something wrong with us beings. We thirst for infinite. Man is the creature who wants to be God. But we are not God, and given our human nature, spirituality suggests that I am okay, you're okay, but I'm not okay, and you're not okay. But that's all right. There's one more. A man cannot be redeemed until he recognizes the flaws in his soul and tries to mend them. A notion that cannot be redeemed until it has recognized the flaws in its souls and tries to mend them. Whoever permits no recognition of this flaw, be it man or nation, permits of redemption. We can be redeemed to the extent to which we recognize ourselves. When Jacob's son said to Joseph, "We are upright men," he answered, "That is why I spoke to you, saying, you are spies." But later, when they confessed the truth with their lips and with their hearts, and said to one another, "We are very guilty concerning our brothers," the first gleam of their redemption dawned. Overwhelmed with compassion, Joseph turned aside and wept. A preacher put this question to a class of children: if all the good people in the world were red and all the bad people were green, what color would you be? Little Linda Jean thought mightily for a moment. Then her face brightened and she replied, "Reverend, I'd be streaky." And so with ending that, this site is made with love. The thing that you see at the end when it's the PayPal or whatever, you'll see who's going to be in charge of the account and what we've done and that ripple that we've made with these kids that I call kid soldiers, not survivors, because they're more than survivors. If you've ever been a soldier or a vet or somebody that's had to put your life in another person's life and rely on that kind of thing and that brotherhood that creates or anything like that, it comes from that. They're living their life, and when you see their stories, that's to help empower. And eventually when you see on here and things that are in the works now of these KSATs, KSATs soldiers, kid soldiers against drunk driving, impaired driving, the impact that's going to make, and especially when Dizzy comes, because Dizzy's going to have a pledge, and Joanne, the second leg of going out of Seattle is going to be in memory of Jessica that died on Martin Luther King's Day. That that we see. We don't have to see the first step. Trying to remember everything in order of what I'm trying to say to you, but you will see that because they're up in Seattle, and with the 200 the miles coming from Seattle to Boise are in there, is in Jessica's remembrance, which I pray and meditate to these people and to the universe with good intent and constantly. And Nick Sr., that's his family, the Bungalinos, will get on the East Coast when I go from that victim impact to another victim impact. And going with writing Jack and Jill, and when I wrote Jack and Jill, and when you see in there the Four Corners is a real place. I'm relating the story back to Nick Portis and sneaking out with his sneaking out with his friends, and I've been praying and hoping that for his mom and family, and that especially the kid that was driving, that and Nick died that day. I hope he's forgiven himself and he's moved on with his life, and that grieving process is, because I remember, and part of the story that's written, that is for my brother and sister, Linnell and Sheldon, and that night when I took them out to a hay bale party, and me and my brother were drinking White Lightning and coming out through Four Corners and driving my car, I could have flipped it, I could have killed him, and things like that. So with that being said, and everything, I have a thing that I'm creating with Dizzy, that a walk with Dizzy. It's called A Walk with Dizzy, and kids will be able to. Dizzy will be reading them a story, and it'll probably be at the Japanese gardens out here or whatever, or wherever I'm at, because I'm gonna have the stuff and do it again. Is a walk with Dizzy, and Dizzy tells him his story, and then he goes through, and you find these they have fairy dust, and they find these magical things with gnomes and all kinds of things along that path that are hidden, stuff that reminded me of when I was planting these things outside the windows for Nick and Nick Sr., the fellow Navy vet that the Bungalinos are going to get, and with Kim's daughter and everything that's got their names written on it, that are like being fly traps that come up open, that you'll be able to see on here someday, how big they get and stuff. But I was thinking of my son Jesse, and when he was little, and he was, I help, Dad, I help, and we made this beautiful yard with gnomes in the house that I got, and Dante Hall, and stories that you'll hear with that, because the Chiefs won the Super Bowl this year, so it's a great year for, I wasn't able to spend it with any loved ones or anything, but